These are called thingas. Thingas. And Thich Nhat Hanh says in Plum Village, we invite the bell to ring. We don't ring it. We invite. Isn't that cool? He was much more. So that also is an indication to cut what rings with you off, your phone or whatever. And no matter who you are, where you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. So we begin in silence. Just collect yourselves and be here. May grace be in our heads and in our thinking. May grace be in our eyes and in our seeing. May grace be in our ears and in our hearing. And may grace be in my mouth and in my speaking. May grace be in our hearts and in our understanding. And may grace be at our ends and at our departing. So how are you doing? Are you okay? How many of you went to the parade last night? 1, 2. That's it? And you're tired? I'm glad you went. Glad both of you went. All of you. I like to wear provocative t-shirts. I wore one this week that says, it's really odd to be the same age as old people. And I get a catalog. I get several. Once you buy stuff, you start getting it. And Northern Sun is a great place to get outrageous t-shirts. Funny Times is a good place to get one if you're interested in that sort of thing. And there is a t-shirt that I have seen on the market for a long time that has this meme on it. And I'm going to confess, I didn't get it. I did not get this t-shirt for a long time. I would see it and I would say, well, who would wear that? Why? What is that about? And my relationship to that t-shirt was much like my relationship to this Magritte painting, which as far as I know, this painting still hangs in the Demon Hill collection over on Alabama. I love Magritte, got a print of his hanging in my office. And I would stand in front of this thing and I would say, I don't get it. I mean, I don't know a lot of French, but I know enough to know that on the painting it says, this is not a pipe. It looks like a pipe. But then it occurred to me, of course it's not a pipe. It's a painting of a pipe. And that's what the artist wanted to convey. This took me a little longer to figure out. This is from The Wizard of Oz, which of course is something that has resonated with millions of people. So the Wicked Witch of the West is not pleased with Dorothy for the death of her sister. And before the Wicked Witch of the West can claim the magic footwear, Dorothy's descending farmhouse comes down on the Wicked Witch of the East. And what we see sticking out of the house are her stocking feet curled up under the stumps and the socks, and they eventually disappear under the house except for the ruby slippers, which go to Dorothy. And then you know what happens after that. You just click your heels together and your deepest wishes, like being carried safely back to Aunt Em and under Uncle Henry's place, is granted. Boy, wouldn't we love to have some of those slippers. I mean, you know what Dorothy said to her dog, Toto, we are not in Kansas anymore. So last week I said, and this is a continuation of last week, and next week will be a continuation of today, because I want to talk next week about how we practice the non-duality that allows us to remain one and part of the group at the same time. But I said that one of the things that's contributed to a growing ignorance in our population, and ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to anger, and under right circumstances, anger can lead to violence, is that around the beginning of the 20th century, people stopped reading books like they read now. I mean, like they used to read. I know you're going to laugh at this, but I hope you do. I recommend a lot of books. I read a lot of books. I love to read. And I know that reading requires a lot on the part of a person. It requires multiple decisions. For one thing, you have to decide what to read out of the multitude of offerings that are out there. And then you have to decide when to read. You have to make time to read. You have to comprehend what's being read. By the way, reading on a Kindle or a Kindle app is a little bit easier for some people, because when you hit a word that you don't understand, just put your finger on it and it looks it up. And that's convenient. And hopefully then after you've read what you have read, you have somebody to talk to about it. The advent of radio and then television caused people to turn to those media for entertainment and information. And as time passed, that set the stage for fearful people who lack confidence and conviction to fall prey to those who appear to be more confident. And as I said last week, these people go by two names: con artists and politicians. And there used to be preachers on radio a long time ago. You'd call Reverend Ike or whoever it was, and they'd send you something you could put in your shoe and wear, and it would make you prosperous. So I quoted from this book last week, Andy Borowitz's book, Profiles in Ignorance, in which he said, "We have been lab rats in a perverse American experiment seemingly designed to answer this question: who's the most ignorant person the United States is willing to elect?" Now, it is true that we have elected a bunch of doofuses. And they have been elected by ignorant people, not stupid people. Because there has been plotting by some of the politically smartest folks money can buy to get us where we are today in our national politics. And no doubt the decline in reading fueled this, but I thought surely there is more. I have been ignorant about so much about what's set the stage for our current political situation. I had gone either ignorant, I didn't know, or had gone absolutely blank about the fact that back prior to World War II in this country, there was a very active, large Nazi party in the United States. I did not know. I mean, I was not aware of that. I was not aware, for example, that Henry Ford, who created one of the watershed moments in American life by inventing the the process of making cars automatically. What do you call that? Assembly line. He had a picture of Hitler on the wall in his office. I didn't know that. So I went looking for more watershed moments. You know, a watershed moment, as described to me by a science teacher in junior high, was that if a drop of rain fell on one side of the continental divide, it went to the Pacific Ocean. And if it went on the other side, it went to the Atlantic Ocean. You know, watershed moment. We all know these moments. We've had them in our personal lives. Falling in love, being betrayed, having a child, getting the job you dreamed of, getting fired from the job you dreamed of, getting a fatal diagnosis, on and on. Now, in here, I frequently referenced those kind of watershed moments. Shocks to the cosmic consciousness that they might be called. Copernicus was one. The earth is not the center of the universe. Darwin was one. We're not unique. Freud was one. There's much more to us than we know. Jung was even more of one, I think, because he said that most of what is real about us is in the inner life. But I'm not talking about these kind of things. I'm talking about subtle changes or not so subtle that have gotten to us to the point today where there are some pundits out there who are saying we are set for a civil war in America. Now, I could likely fill up the rest of this time today by listing things that have caused us to say in one way or another, things have not been the same since that house fell on my sister. Think, for example, what it would be like to live in Houston, Texas without air conditioning. That's a watershed thing. I went to the university just when students were beginning to own their own typewriters. All right? So typewriters revolutionized writing, just like writing revolutionized oral communication. And then along came word processing machines that revolutionized typewriters. When I went into private practice, there was a device that was incredibly expensive, but it was something that revolutionized especially the legal profession, and that was the fax machine. It used to be that lawyers had weeks to turn something around, and now a brief could go from Texas to New York in a matter of minutes. It's hard to find a typewriter anymore or a fax machine. In 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone. I don't know many people anymore who have a landline. Just this week, a friend of mine demonstrated to me over a Zoom meeting we had how he could use AI to read a book that I had recommended and write a 1,000-word summary of that book, and it took less than 3 minutes to do it. So rather than list all those events or technologies that have brought us where we are, I want to try a different approach. I want to begin today by putting this entire class into just a couple of sentences, and that way you will know what I am attempting to do. And then you can choose either to stay alert and ride with me for the rest of the way, or you can zone out. That's your choice. So, we are where we are because we as a culture have been seduced by the religion of our culture, which seeks to convince us that everything is or should be easy and that the main purpose of life is to be entertained. Now, the proposed solution for this is that, one, we develop a very realistic hope. Two, we learn to accept what is. And three, and this is going to sound a little bit more complicated, but I'll hope to unpack it. Three, that we find the religion within the religion that the living traditions have offered over the ages. So entering into and abiding in the sacred stream is an effort to not revive the religion that we have, whether you got here benefiting from it as I did, or whether you got here because this religion has betrayed you or hurt you in some way. Either way, we're here. This is what we're attempting to do. So that's kind of a summary. And I want to begin the journey by telling a Zen teaching story. I love Zen teaching stories. And I guarantee you have not heard this one. The man on your left is what is called a sensei, or a master teacher in martial arts. And they bow to each other at the beginning and the end of a lesson. At the end of this particularly tough lesson, the martial arts student asks the sensei, "Why does my ability not improve? I always get defeated." And the sensei pondered this for a bit, and then he said, "My dear student, have you seen the geese flying by the sun, their wings seeming like flame?" The student says, "Yes, sensei, I have seen this." There's another pause, and the sensei says, "And a waterfall. Have you seen a waterfall spilling mightily over the rocks, seemingly without effort, carving a path in what seems uncarvable?" "Yes, sensei, I have seen this." "And the moon. Have you seen the moon when it touches the calm water, reflecting all of nature's enormous beauty?" "Yes, sensei, I have also seen this." The sensei said, "That's the problem. You take too many vacations." You are aware, no doubt, of the recent suggestion the Surgeon General said that there should be warnings put on social media apps similar to the ones that are put on cigarettes. Warning, this is habit forming. Those of us in the business of learning and knowing about psychological matters were in no way surprised by this. Professional journals 20 years ago, especially those focused on neurosciences, came out with not speculation, but hard researched evidence that video games and screen time affected seemingly permanently the brain's development for solving problems and doing critical thinking. We've had this data in front of us for years, just like we had data in front of us about the dangers of cigarette smoking. Now, fortunately, it seems that many people in our culture have been educated away from cigarettes, but this problem is tantamount in our culture. I'm sure none of you ever. In 1985, there was a book published that was about the corrosive effects of television on politics and public discourse. And it's since been republished and re-edited by the Sun's author. And when it was published, it was hailed as a 21st century book published in the 20th century. The book is called Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. And it was and is a prophetic look at what happens when politics, journalism, education, and even religion becomes subject to the demands of entertainment. Now, when Neil Postman wrote this book, by the way, he was a highly regarded professor at NYU. He wrote 18 other books. This is his most highly regarded book. And when this book was first published in 1985, there was no internet, no cell phones, no cable channels, no DVDs, no caller ID, no blogs, no flat screen TVs, no iPads, or anything like what we have now. And yet, prophetically, the book's point is that it is because of these things that what is truly meaningful to a people, to a culture, is lost. And like that frog in the water pot of the gradually warming water, we no longer care what we've lost as long as we're being entertained. In wandering the halls of the Divinity School at Harvard, I ran across a prayer written by Willard Sperry, who was at one time dean of the Harvard Divinity School. And the prayer says, "Give to us, O Lord, a right discernment between that which comes first in our faith and that which follows after. And when we would make much of that which cannot matter much to thee, recall us to the heart of our Christian profession. Jesus our Lord, amen." This is what we have done to our culture. We have made much of that which matters little. This country, indeed the world, much of it, is armed for warfare. Look at the size of our defense budget. In a country where 800 people a day die from the results of poverty. We're part of that culture. We have created as a population where no external threat is required to deprive people of their autonomy, maturity, and history. One where people adore the technologies that undo our capacity to think. Ours is not a world where we are deprived of information, but rather one where we are given so much information, we are reduced to passivity. And it's true, we seem to have an almost infinite appetite for distractions. The message of our culture is that we have neither the time nor the need to commit to growing, which is the primary purpose of being here, as the people we are. So one aspect of being involved in the sacred stream is to have an ongoing awareness and relationship to the true self and to that which we call sacred mystery. But honestly, when somebody gets up in front of us and says something about the importance of having a daily spiritual practice, our reflexive response is, I don't have time. Yet, in fact, we make time for the things that we are convinced are really important. And so we end up getting not just the best politicians money can buy, but sadly, the politicians we deserve. Now, Sherry and I do not watch a lot of commercial television. I try to curate very carefully what we enjoy as entertainment. I have long lived by the dictates or dictum of Carl Jung, who said, if you don't tell the world who you are, it will tell you. So what we put in our mind makes a whole lot of difference to our character and the quality of lives. Nonetheless, in navigating to where I want to get on Netflix or Prime or someplace to watch something that I want to watch. Or even watching the recent Olympic trials, they'll still be on tonight. You still see commercials, right? I asked my doctor some time ago if I could have his home phone number. And he raised his eyebrow and asked me why, and I told him the truth. I said, my television shows me commercials for pharmaceuticals that cost millions of dollars to make. And even though the side effects, when they give them, sound like something I would not even wish on one of those politicians I dislike, they all end with, ask your doctor if Balidomide is right for you. And I just thought it would be more convenient if I called you right then. He referred me to a psychiatrist. You want to learn a language while you sleep? Buy Babbel. You can speak Swahili like a native in 3 weeks. That's what they say or imply. And we buy it. Now, I want to be very careful in what I am now about to say because I don't want to be seduced by such dualistic thinking and speaking, though at times that is absolutely what's required. But even more important, I want to drop off into that divisive us versus them mentality. Keep in mind the creed of Jesus, if he had one, was love God, love your neighbor. That's it. So that being said, a fact is that whole persons cannot be nurtured in a context of social chaos. And a coherent social order cannot be constructed by dysfunctional individuals. Now, whose responsibility is it to fix this? How many of you have seen the PBS series Father Brown? We went through a phase of loving watching Father Brown. Started at the beginning, episode 1 of season 1, going all the way through. If you like Father Brown, you credit this guy. His name is G.K. Chesterton. I went through a period of time in seminary and graduate school where I read a lot of his stuff. I really liked him. He's funny, and I quoted him a lot. One of his great lines is, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. Isn't that great? I just love the way his mind works about that. So when you have time, look, when you create time, look at the Wikipedia article about Chesterton. He's just brilliant. He was raised a Unitarian, I believe, and converted to Catholicism. He's a gadfly of a man. He also wrote, the Christian faith has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found difficult and left untried. Now that isn't true. And of course, he didn't mean it that way, the way it reads. Because there have been many individuals and groups of individuals who have wonderfully exemplified what it means to be a follower of Jesus. What he meant was that a Christian nation had never seriously attempted to live the vision given to us in the teaching of Jesus to love one another. So there are all these demands that the 10 Commandments be put up. Now it's ordered into law in Louisiana and Oklahoma. Why are people not advocating for the Sermon on the Mount to be put there? There's an answer to that. I'll let you worry with that. One of the most hate-filled groups in this country are those that go by the name of Christian. Chesterton, by the way, had a job in England, London, of writing for the London Daily News. And George Bernard Shaw said about Chesterton, he was a man of colossal genius. And once his editor gave him the responsibility for writing an article for the paper titled, "What's Wrong with the World?" And Chesterton submitted his essay. It consisted of 2 words: I am. Now, the good news is that we can also each be what's right about the world. But that will take work. It will take growth, committed growth in religious and spiritual literacy. And it will take it will take a practice of some kind. It's not easy. The movement that goes under the name of Christian nationalism is not a unified group. The movement, most extreme adherents, is maybe 1 in 3 Americans. These are the people who believe in dominionism. Dominionism is the belief that Christians are ordained to exercise dominion over all aspects of society. And that's about 10% of our society. But another 20% are really highly sympathetic with them. And the political influence of this group is growing, especially in the Republican Party, around their nominee, Donald Trump. And a core belief for these people, a core belief, is that this country was founded by Christians, for Christians, like them, which means generally people born here and white. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, refers to America as a biblical republic. I was going to do this, but I think I'll wait till some other time. I mean, it's not in my notes. But if you look at the pictures of people who were at the insurrection, many of them were carrying Bibles. And I am 100% positive that none of them carrying a Bible could tell me where that Bible came from. Marjorie Taylor Greene, our heroine, just calls herself a proud Christian nationalist. This movement is growing at state levels, particularly. The 10 Commandments thing is an indication. Draconian laws about abortion. Moving money from public education to charter schools, which is just code language for Christian education. The cutbacks in training for diversity, equity, and inclusion. The cutbacks in gender-affirming care for young transgender persons. And the movement's gaining momentum. I'm not trying to scare you. It just is gaining momentum. This Christian nationalism is not new. It goes back to the first European settlers in this country. And I grew up in a church where we had an American flag and a flag of the state of Tennessee and a flag of the Christian flag, all in the church. This Christian nationalism got a huge bump in 2016. And many who call themselves evangelical Christians support Donald Trump because even though he seems a reputable, questionable character, he promises to make America great as a Christian nation. And as one evangelical said in the documentary God and Country, which is on Prime, I encourage you to watch it and you will be disturbed, but it's informative. The evangelical on that documentary said, if you believe that the barbarians are at the gate, you might just be willing to turn to a barbarian to do your fighting for you. And the evidence of Christian nationalism is clear in photographs like this one. If you're on God's side fighting Satan, then the niceties of democracy just fall away and anything goes. One of the reasons that Christian nationalism has become the force it has is because the progressive or more educated form of Christianity in this country, and again, I want to try to avoid being divisive and blaming, but Christian nationalism would not have arisen if the church had done a better job educating people about both what it means to be Christian and how to think about the Bible and the documents that relate to the Bible. The cross is not a sign of victory. It's an execution symbol. In the Christian mythology, the sign of victory is the empty tomb, not the cross. The Bible is not an idol that protects people from harm or grants people permission to do evil. It's the family photo album, and not all pictures are worth looking at. As I say frequently, I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church in Tennessee. I graduated from high school on the eve of the Supreme Court's decision to desegregate public schools, and that fueled a lot of my youthful passion. In 1954, the motto in the Southern Baptist Convention was 1,000,000 more in 54. That is, we wanted to add 1,000,000 more members to the church, not followers of Jesus. It's a big difference. And we told people, and we're told to tell people, it's no big deal, just join. You don't have to change a thing. Just believe in Jesus. The die for this kind of nonsense was set actually in Europe back during the time of the Crusades. You convert to Christianity, or you get out of the country, or you die. Well, I believe. Settles that. So what does it really mean to be a Christian and to be in the sacred stream? I want to read to you an extended passage from Peter Rollins' book of both theology and innovative liturgies. And this book is entitled How Not to Speak About God. Peter Rollins is, I'm just going to tell you because what I'm going to read won't sound like it, but he is to the far left in his theology. I remember seeing a sticker that said, if Christianity was illegal, would there be enough evidence to convict you? That evening, I had a dream that it was true and that I was summoned before a judge. The prosecution had quite a case against me. They began by offering the judge dozens of photographs, which show me attending church meetings, speaking at religious events, participating in various prayer and worship services. Next, they offer up as evidence some of the religious books that I have both written and been reading, followed by some of my religious CDs and trinkets. After this, they step up the pace and reveal to the court many of the poems, pieces of prose and journal entries that I've written about faith. Then, in closing, the prosecution twists the bloody knife that they have skillfully used by offering my Bible to the judge. This is a well-worn book with scribbles, notes, drawings, and underlining throughout, evidence, if it were needed, that I have read and reread the sacred book. Throughout the court case, I've been sitting in fear and trembling, saturated by sweat. I know deep in my heart that with the evidence against me, imprisonment or even death is a strong possibility. At times throughout the proceedings, I've even been on the verge of standing up and denying Christ. But while this idea haunts my mind, I resist the temptation and remain focused. Once the prosecution is finished presenting their case, the judge proceeds to ask if I have anything to add, but I remain silent and resolute, terrified that if I open my mouth, I might be weak enough to deny the charges made against me. And then I'm led away while the judge ponders my case. After about an hour, I'm summoned back to the courtroom in order to hear the verdict and receive word of my punishment. The judge enters the room, stands before me, looks deep into my eyes and states, "Of the charges that have been brought forward, I find the accused not guilty." Not guilty. My heart freezes. And then in a split second, my fear and terror are transformed into confusion and rage. Despite myself, I stand before the judge and demand that he tell me why I am innocent of the charges in light of all the evidence. "What evidence?" he replies in shock. I point out the various poems and journal entries I've written, the books I've authored. He simply replies, "They only show you have a way with words." I refer to the services I've spoken at, worship meetings I've participated in, conferences I've led. He just smiles and tells me it's only evidence that I'm a good public speaker, a bit of an actor, who pretends to be what he is not, nothing more. And then he says such foolishness would never be enough to convict me. The dream ends as he looks me in the eye and says, as if informing me of a great long-forgotten secret, "The court is indifferent toward your Bible reading and church attendance. It has no concern for worship with words and a pen. Continue to develop your theology and use it to paint pictures of love. We have no interest in such church-going artists who spend their time creating images of a better world. We exist for those who would lay down that brush and their life in a Christ-like endeavor to create that world." Ease and entertainment are our words for today, remember? My spiritual teacher from years ago said, "A program of self-recognition and self-change reads easy, but it does hard." And what he meant is the same thing that a piano instructor means when the teacher gives the would-be pianist a stack of etudes, the word means studies, to take home and practice. This stuff is hard. It's not hard to say, and though what I teach in here would have scared the pants off me had I heard it in 1954, what I mean is that it's not an easy task to convince even progressive Christians that there's more. To convince someone that they are not Christian when they have been told all their lives that they are, and then to persuade them to take up the task of becoming a Christian, though that is something they thought they had done long ago, is a chore. Socrates got the death sentence for trying to convince the Athenians that they did not know what they thought they knew. So even now, in a place like this, to present Jesus as a common human, eating, sweating, getting tired, dirty, having sex, tending to the unmentionable aspects of his digestive tract, to say nothing of the humiliation of a public execution as a common criminal, is hard to get a hearing. The truth is, and it is truth that we say we want, that Christianity is not a matter of having a baptismal certificate that functions like a boarding pass to get through security at the pearly gates. Truth is not something you have or believe. It's how we believe it. And in this case, the name of God is the name of a deed. The problem is that if this is true for one religion, it's true for all of them. My experience in abiding in the sacred stream, when I do, is that I encounter numerous times the words however and without. I have a deep, profound appreciation and gratitude for the church, actually churches, and religious instructions and experiences that led me to be right here today. And at the same time, I see the incredulity that this religion is getting from so many today, and it is an incredulity that is well deserved. As that religion is now presented to the world in the form of Christian nationalism, it becomes more and more incredible and unbelievable every day, which doesn't mean it will pass away. History shows it will not. However, there's that word. I love that word. However, there have always been those within this religion who have seen another way of hoping, another way of having faith, another way of experiencing grace, another way to pray. If there's not, then the hope that the religion of our culture has to offer is hopeless. And the word without is a word I cannot live without. That's a play on words. I was first introduced to without as a word in religion, in theology, by Dietrich Bonhoeffer in the seminary, when he talked about a religion-less Christianity, or religion without religion. I'm holding out for a hope in and for of a religion of a different kind than we have today. Certainly, there is obvious about the farce that parades under the banner of Christian nationalism. I'm talking about the religion that has been ours. The religion, sadly, that has been so insipid and so uninspiring that it actually created the vacuum in which Christian nationalism could arise. I'm reaching for a religion of a different kind, one that comes through religion, against religion, without religion. One that starts out by keeping a wary distance from a lot of what's going on in religion right now, but does not fall into an angry diatribe against religion. That's what shallow atheism does. I am so grateful for the religion that got me here. It's not enough. And I want to acknowledge that whatever we create will be redone in the next generation. So there are at least 3 non-negotiables for me in my understanding of the sacred stream, at least at the moment. Hope is one of them. I'm not talking about the kind of hope that a mother gives to us when we break our favorite toy and she says, there, everything is going to be okay. Although it is. I believe the hymn is right. We're safe and secure from all alarms, no matter what. The hope of which I speak is the kind of hope that kept Mother Teresa tending to the poor in Calcutta even when she lost her faith. That's hope. The other non-negotiable in the sacred stream is simply what is. What is, and what ain't. And to lose faith because what is ain't the way we want what is to be ain't much of a faith. And then there is the religion of which I speak. It's a religion found within religion. A religion that takes us into another realm which Jesus referred to as the rule of God. It is wrestling with these 3 things as the angel wrestled with Jacob. Or maybe to use a better metaphor, as someone wrestles with our addiction to ease and grace. And they are addictions. That we experience grace. Amazing grace. That saved one such as me. No matter where you go this week, no matter what happens, remember this, you carry precious cargoes, so watch your step, and see you here next week. Thank you.